My friends, who are these new Christians of the Great Awakening? And why, at this 250-year anniversary of our nation, have they been erased, deleted from our classrooms, from our textbooks? Are they, as some historians say, a bunch of Christian zombies? They just walked around all day committing to prayer and singing hymns. Or were they, as I believe, my friends, they were men and women who put their faith in their actions. They were the first to tell the world that God told them that human slavery is a sin and we must confront that sin. But imagine it's the year 1776. That's the birthday of our country. Yes, the Declaration. We were born July 4th, 1776, not some other time as some of your colleges and universities seem to teach and profess. But what happened in the 1700s? These new Christians, who were called anti-slavery, the nuance there, instead of being pro-freedom, they were called anti-slavery. And they told these new Christians of the Great Awakening, ye are crazy. Crazy. Never get involved in politics. Why? Because the whole world was doing slavery. Human slavery was already over 8,000 years old, and not one country in the entire world had abolished human slavery, including the nations of Africa. And to you new Christians of the Great Awakening, slavery was big money. And finally, there were other churches who were saying that slavery was part of the plan of God. But these new Christians of the Great Awakening said, we do not care that the whole world's doing slavery. We do not care that it's 8,000 years old and that not one nation in the world had abolished human slavery. We do not care that it's big money. And the other so-called Christians were saying it's part of God's plan. No. Because God told us that human slavery is a sin and we must confess that sin. And what they did, my friends, changed the whole world. From our founding fathers, even when Thomas Jefferson wrote his famous Declaration of Independence, when he wrote that, he still talked about slavery. In our Constitution of 1787, we came forth, we the people also declared that within 20 years, we would abolish any expansion of human slavery. The impact of these new Christians, the incredible impact on our founding fathers, on their philosophies, the creation of abolitionist movement. And abolitionists, they were Christians who said human slavery is a sin and we must confront that sin. These were men and women who put their faith into action and helped construct and fund things like the Underground Railroad, helping people like Frederick Douglass. You see, black families in the South did not have buildings with great warehouses where they could hide slaves, or big farms with barns where they could hide slaves, or large churches with a basement where they could hide runaway slaves. These were people of the Great Awakening who put their faith into action. They worked to create a brand new party, and two of the planks were to stop the expansion of slavery and eventually abolish all slavery. And it led to the election of this new man called Abraham Lincoln. But it was fueled by a Supreme Court decision 7-2, 7 Democrats versus 2 Republicans. The Democrats said a black man had no rights. Whether you be born free or you be born slave, it did not matter. You had no civil rights. And that fueled the expansion of this new Republican Party. There's President Lincoln. And of course, when he was elected, immediately 10 pro-slavery Democrat slates fled the Union. These people of faith worked with Frederick Douglass and Lincoln to create the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment to abolish human slavery, the 14th for civil rights, overturning the horrible Dred Scott decision, the 15th Amendment guaranteeing black men the right to vote, the KKK Act under Grant to stop the Southern Democrats from the voter suppression and the violence against African American voters, and the freedom schools, where newly freed blacks could have medical attention, could have food, and could learn how to read and write. These are men and women of faith and action who have again been deleted, been erased from our history books. Why? These are men and women who knew what tar and feathering was, because they were tarred and feathered when it was found out that ye were helping runaway slaves and ye were white. This is what happened to you. And yes, there are white men and women who were also lynched and tortured for their faith, because God told them that human slavery is a sin, and we must confess that sin. These are people of the three waves of the Great Awakening that took over North America, took over young United States, took over England, and swept across the world, a movement to abolish the sin of human slavery. And yet, at this 250-year anniversary, they have been erased, deleted from our history books, and when they are included in movies again, the picture of a bunch of Christian zombies who just pray and sing hymns, pray and sing hymns. What a lie. They were men and women who put their faith into action. And the men and women, these new Christians, the Great Awakening, who said human slavery is a sin, we must confront that sin, they changed America, and they changed the world. Thank you, my friends. I invite you in this day to help change America and change our world. Amen. Amen. Alleluia. Amen.